Brian DiMaggio.
Wow, that was, Michelle, thank you very much. I was not expecting an introduction. I was figuring I'd get up here and just try to talk to you guys. I didn't bring a speech for you. I imagine this group is not the type that really appreciates a speech. Am I right? Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, my history is a very simple one. I know bad government very well. I've seen it, lived it, breathed it, and I do not like accumulated power in any way, shape, or form. I'm very against the attempt for accumulated power that's coming in this election, and I think you guys are familiar with what I'm talking about. And I like the idea of people coming to the table with their own ideas. I like the idea of the 5 districts. There's a lot of talk about people who want us to go to a chartered form of government. I am definitely not in favor of this. So I love our commissioner form of government. I think it was given as a gift to us to get that government closer to the people. And that's something I think that all of us share in common. About 4 years ago, I'm going to pay tribute to a good friend of mine named Chris Scalio. I don't know if you know him, but I will tell you this. This man saw me running for office because I really wanted to make a difference and get rid of the rotten government that we had in there. And he says to me, Brian, here's something that you need to read. And he handed me a copy of the Maryland State Constitution and the United States Constitution. He said, you read this or you know better than the ones that are in there. And now this came from a man who knew me very well and knew what I had been through. And I thought my passion alone would be enough to guide me through it, and I was wrong. And I went back and thanked that man. I said, wow, I did not even know we had a Maryland Constitution. And that's pretty sad. You know, here I was, I'm following to run for office, and I had no idea that we had this. So as I read through this document and I read through that Declaration of Rights, and if you haven't read through it, you should. And I'm not going to say it is any amount of shame to you. I'm just going to say you should. It's beautiful. Our forefathers loved us enough to leave us a government like that. Wow. That's powerful. And when you read through those rights, they're so respectful. I love when they get down to the ones they talk about, no retrospective laws, no retrospective rules. I mean, they get down to like little specific things like that. Don't do anything retroactive to somebody. It's dishonest and wrong. And I had that done to me. And I know exactly what that feels like. And so when I go to talk to a lawyer, you know what he says? Oh, well, that's zoning. That's outside the Constitution. And I said, what? I said, that's not possible. How do we have a government outside the Constitution? He said, oh, it's because you don't understand. Zoning was passed many years ago outside the Constitution. Well, let me tell you something. We have some beautiful things, and if you guys know Bob Curlin. Bob and I worked very hard to get this thing through. I don't know if you know this, but we actually we got them to put a constitutional amendment in the Finksburg corridor plan, and they actually have one now in the master plan. And Phil Hager put that through, and that was at our request. We brought this to him, and he agreed. And for those of you who don't know who Phil Hager is, Phil Hager is he's the director of the planning department. And he's a gift to our county. This is a true patriot. Now, for whatever you can say, you might agree or disagree with something that he does, but I'll tell you, the man has a deep love for our county and a deep love for government. And I'm talking about the kind that we're supposed to have, not for the power-hungry people that just like to control. Well, anyway, listen, I'm going to cut it short right there. If you guys have any questions for me, I had about 10 minutes here. I probably burned half of them up, and I'd like to leave some time for questions.
No, you have 10 minutes for talking and 10 minutes for question and answer.
I have 10 minutes for, I don't know if these guys want to listen to me that long. So, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go for questions because my father was very, very clear to me. He said, son, you need to learn to cut it short. So I'm going to do that for you guys. So go ahead, ask your questions.
I feel like we need to ask some of the same questions of you as we have Mr. Mercer, and we would like to know where you stand on Common Core and what you will do to help the people of this county. And if people came to you and said, we don't want Common Core, what would you do?
Well, actually, that's what they have done. I've had a lot of people come to me and say they don't want this. And although it's not generally in the purview of the county commissioners, there are 3 great candidates that I think you guys are familiar with, and I have done all I can to back them. I've put out several mailers, and I have a few more going out, and every one of my mailers has their names on it, and I believe that they will do a great job to try to get rid of Common Core. And I've talked with them, and I've done my own studies on it, where it comes from. Can't say I like it, and there's a lot of lies going around about this, and on both sides. And so there's misinformation coming from all over the place. But I'm going to tell you, I have not seen anything good. Most of the parents that I talk to hate it. Most of the teachers hate it. Most of the students hate it. I won't say all, because I've actually met a few that seem like they're drinking the Kool-Aid. And I'm really not up for the taste of it. I like my iced tea better. So anyway, long and short of it, what I would do, I would work with the school board to try to find ways to deal with the situation. Because if it's something that we cannot get rid of, I believe it's something that we're going to have to fix. Because I don't believe it's something that we should live with the way it is, and I don't think we should have this forced. I'm all for fighting it and getting rid of it. So that's my goal. But if that's not possible and that turns to be something that we can't do, I'm all for not letting it go the way it is and actually fixing the problems. Well, listen, you don't have to sell me on that. I'm all for it. I don't know that we can get our state against it. But I do know this. It's amazing what happens when you take a stand. I've watched for the stands that we've taken in our county and the stands the commissioners take. I'm willing to take a strong stand on it and go as far as we can go with it. So I don't know how far commissioners can actually push this, but I'll push it as far as I can. But I think the biggest thing we're going to need to do is get a school board that does not want this, and I am backing them 100%. So I mean, it costs about $1,000 to put a mailer out, maybe a little over, and I have 5 mailers, and my last mailer I just put together is dedicated to the 3 school board candidates that will get rid of Common Core. So if you want to know what I'm doing about it as a candidate, I'm doing all I can. I'm nonstop talking about it. It's on every piece of my literature. I give their names out, and I love these guys, and I think they're going to be the answer. Now, I'm not counting on them to do it alone, because they're going to need somebody to back them up, and I count on being there to back them up. Right on the front of my literature, I'm against it. I let people know I'm against it. I want to get rid of it. So, and if for no other reason, if you didn't know anything else about Common Core, if you just know that the parents hate it, the teachers hate it, and the students hate it, that'd be enough to make you say, hey, something's wrong here. We need to do something. So, any other questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
This is only so it's on. How many children do you have?
I have 6.
And how many of those children have been in the public schools, and how many of those children have you and your wife homeschooled?
We have triplets that are 19, and they've been homeschooled all the way through. They never went to public school. And my twins and my youngest, they went to they went to public school for a few years at Sandy Mount. And my wife had this dream. She wanted to homeschool all of our kids. This is her dream. And she's done an amazing job. I am married to Superwoman, and I will tell you, she's amazing. My wife, Ginger DiMaggio, is, I'm going to tell you, more than I ever deserved and more than I could ever imagine. So 21 years, and I will tell you, I'm still amazed. But that being said, my 3 youngest, and it's interesting that you would ask that, how many were in public school. My 3 youngest went, and I'll tell you why. We had, they used to offer the IEP assessments. I don't know if you know that. That used to be offered as part of, if you were homeschooling, you could take your kids up, and they would do an IEP assessment with your kids and help you work through the problems. Well, they did away with that. They don't do that anymore. Even though they have the staff there to do it, they don't let private school or public school have access, or private school or homeschool have access to that anymore. And so my wife, we had one of our kids learning challenged, and she wanted to get an IEP assessment for him, and they said the only way you're going to get that is if you go through the public schools. So she tried doing it by herself and going to a private assessment place. Things weren't working out, and it was so tedious to her trying to still do the school with the triplets that I talked her into. I said, why don't you let them go to the elementary school for a few years, and when you get the triplets into high school and things let up a little, bring them back. And she did that. So when my twins were going to go into 6th grade, that was when she brought all the kids back home, and she homeschooled them since. But our triplets graduated a year early. She kept them, the whole time she kept them ahead. So for all the, things you hear about, how homeschool moms are slacking and all this stuff, there was no slacking in my house. I can tell you, I was there. It was cracking of the whip, and I'm going to tell you, but it was good. A lot of one-on-one teaching, and I'm very thankful for how she poured into our kids. So I believe my kids got a full education, and there was nothing hidden from them. I think they got a full education on history in ways that our kids in public school don't. I went to public school, you guys went to public school, and I'm going to tell you, or a lot of you did, you probably didn't even know we had a Maryland Constitution. My kids not only know it, they know about it, they understand it in ways that I never did. So we have a heart to want our kids to know the history of their country and the beauty of it and the sacrifices that were made. So I'll cut that short. Anybody have another question?
You just mentioned something a moment ago about testing. IAP?
IEP testing.
IEP. What justification did the system give you for failing, refusing, to perform that test. The reason I raise that is because I'm sure that you are all aware that the school board is responsible for every school-age student in the county, whether they're homeschooled, whether they're private schooled, or whether they're public schooled. So what justification did they give you?
It's very simple, and it's the one that's generally given, and it was that you chose to homeschool your kids, so you chose to bear the full responsibility of it. And so they said if you want your kids to go to public school, they can have access to that. But other than that, they weren't going to work with us on that. But they used to, but they don't anymore. So, and they said, we're very sorry, not available to you. So that was all we were told. We lived with it for a little while, and then we decided it was one of my twins had a reading issue, was having trouble with it, and we cared enough that we wanted to try to find a way to resolve that. And I got to give credit. They did work with us when we put him in the public school, so I got to give credit where it was due. They did work with us when we finally conceded to that, and I'm thankful for the help that they gave in that. And we needed some assistance through that, because sometimes, being homeschool parents, you can get overwhelmed. There can be things that you might not be able to handle, and I appreciated them for that. So I got to be, in all honesty, very thankful for the help they did give. So, any other questions? All right. Well, this will be a great meeting. So I didn't take up all your time.
I appreciate it.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
Brian.
much.